Welcome to this explainer. I am so excited to jump into this with you today. We're diving into something absolutely massive, a highly complex system that is honestly way more than just dirt and seeds. We are unpacking the structural characteristics and the epic evolution of Indian agriculture. So, whether you're studying economics, working in business, or you're just curious about how the world actually feeds itself and how global commodity markets can shift based on a single harvest, you are in the exact right place. Let's break this whole thing down step by step. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with 1, the backbone of India. Then move to 2, a gamble on monsoons. And 3, the small farmer's reality. After that, we'll hit 4, diversity in crops. 5, green revolution and beyond. And finish up with 6, the future of farming. All right, let's get right into it with section 1, the backbone of India. Before we get into the heavy data, we really have to grasp the sheer scale of what we're talking about here. 1.4 billion, that's the number. Indian agriculture has this incredibly high-stakes, monumental job of ensuring food security for over 1.4 billion people. But, it doesn't even stop there. It supplies the raw materials for major global industries. Literally everything from the cotton and the clothes you're wearing to the international spice markets. It drives a huge export sector and sustains millions of livelihoods. Now, since independence, the country has actually gone from facing chronic food shortages and relying on imports to becoming one of the top producers and exporters of agricultural commodities in the world. It's an incredible success story for sure, but it comes with a highly unique set of structural challenges. Which brings us to section 2, a gamble on monsoons. So despite decades of building out these massive canals, reservoirs, and high-tech drip systems, there's still a really stark divide. Nearly 50% of India's net sown area is completely dependent on the rain. Specifically, we're talking about the southwest monsoon that hits between June and September. Just think about that for a second. Half of the food production capacity of a global superpower relies entirely on the weather. When the monsoon arrives on time and it's well distributed, great. Rural incomes go up, food supplies swell, and the whole national economy gets a serious boost. But when it's delayed or erratic, well, then we're looking at crop failures, water scarcity, and real national inflation in food prices. This vulnerability is so deeply baked into the system that economist Sir Charles Eliot famously called Indian agriculture a gamble on the monsoons. And today, that gamble is getting a lot riskier. Because of climate change causing irregular rainfall, flash floods, and these really long dry spells, weather resilience isn't just a nice-to-have anymore. When this system gets hit by weird weather, it doesn't just hurt the local farmers. It sends literal ripples right through our global food supply chains. Let's zoom in a bit for section 3, the small farmer's reality. Here's a wild statistic for you. Over 85% of Indian farmers own less than 2 hectares of land. To put that into perspective, just picture a couple of soccer fields. That is it. So why is this? Well, as property gets continuously subdivided across generations because of inheritance laws, the land just becomes incredibly fragmented. You don't get these massive commercial farms. Instead, you end up with millions of tiny, scattered plots. And farming on plots that tiny creates some really harsh daily realities. First off, it pushes a lot of people into subsistence farming. That means their main goal is literally just growing enough staples like rice or wheat to feed their own family, rather than trying to maximize commercial profit. Second, it drastically limits mechanization. You can't exactly maneuver a giant combine harvester on a tiny scattered plot, right? This naturally leads to lower investments in tech, higher production costs per unit, and, critically, very little bargaining power in the broader market. Actually, to try and combat this, the government is pushing for farmer-producer organizations, or FPOs, to help these small farmers pool their resources and get some economies of scale back. Now, all this fragmentation leads to a super vital economic concept: disguised unemployment. It's basically the agricultural equivalent of having way too many cooks in the kitchen. Because these plots are so small, and frankly there just aren't many alternative jobs out in rural areas, you might have 5 or 6 family members working a piece of land that really only needs 2 people to manage it. So those extra workers are technically busy, sure, but their marginal productivity, the actual extra value they are adding to the harvest, is basically zero. And when you look at the macro level, the economic mismatch is just massive. Agriculture employs about 40 to 45% of India's entire workforce, but it only contributes around 16 to 18% of the country's gross value added. It is a highly labor-intensive system where the economic output just doesn't match the human input. Solving this ultimately means creating alternative jobs in manufacturing and agro-processing to take some of that intense population pressure off the land. Moving right along to section 4, diversity in crops. India's geographical diversity is just off the charts. We're talking about everything from freezing Himalayan mountains down to sun-drenched coastal plains, deserts, and deep tropical forests. And because of this incredible variety, India can cultivate almost every major crop grown in the entire world, from the sprawling tea plantations in Assam to cotton thriving in the black soils of central India to coffee grown in the Western Ghats. It's hands down one of the most agriculturally diverse nations on the planet. This geographical variety drives a really intricate agricultural calendar built around three main cropping seasons. First up is the Kharif season, which runs from June to October. This one is entirely tied to the southwest monsoon, so it needs warm temperatures and heavy rain for staples like rice, maize, and cotton. Then you have the Rabi season, from November to April. These are your winter-sown, spring-harvested crops, think wheat, barley, and mustard. And finally, there's the super short summer Zaid season right between March and June. That one relies heavily on irrigation to pump out watermelons, cucumbers, and fodder. This rotating, nonstop calendar dictates exactly what ends up on our plates.
Now we reach a historic turning point. Section 5, Green Revolution and Beyond.
Back in the late 1960s, India launched the Green Revolution. This was a massive, game-changing technological intervention built basically on three pillars: the introduction of high-yielding variety seeds, a huge ramp-up in chemical fertilizers and pesticides, and the rapid expansion of assured irrigation and modern farming techniques. And it worked. This precise formula absolutely skyrocketed the production of wheat and rice. But, the legacy of that revolution is a classic double-edged sword. On one hand, it was an absolute miracle. It transformed India from a food deficit nation into a massive food surplus giant, with serious buffer stocks, wiping out the need for food imports, and raising incomes in those irrigated regions. But that intense cultivation came with a really heavy environmental price tag. Today, we're dealing with severe groundwater extraction, soil salinity, this dangerous dependence on chemicals, and deep regional disparities, because those benefits were mostly concentrated in just a few states like Punjab and Haryana. So where do we go from here? Let's look at Section 6, the future of farming. The only real answer to those environmental challenges is a massive, urgent shift towards sustainability and diversification. The focus is no longer just on pumping out the absolute maximum grain yields. Instead, we're seeing this exciting pivot toward climate-smart agriculture, organic farming, and micro-irrigation techniques like drip and sprinkler systems to save water. Plus, there's a digital revolution happening right now. Drones, remote sensing, artificial intelligence, they're starting to help even the small farmers optimize what they do. On top of that, farmers are diversifying away from just rice and wheat. They're getting into high-value horticulture, dairy, and poultry. In fact, India is already among the top producers globally for milk, fruits, and spices. This diversification, that's going to be the real driver of long-term, sustainable rural income. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this one truly powerful question. How do you feed 1.4 billion people while saving the planet? That right there is the ultimate balancing act of modern Indian agriculture. It's no longer just a race to increase production. It's about ensuring profitability, securing climate resilience, and guaranteeing nutritional security. It is a monumental challenge for sure, but as we've seen today, it's an industry defined by its ability to adapt and survive. I really hope this explainer has given you a clear, structured understanding of the massive forces shaping the food on our tables. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and thank you so much for joining me today on this journey through the bedrock of India.